Good morning, everybody. My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Media Company. In today's topic, we're talking the 2022 NFL Draft in the wide receiver position. From the title of the video, you can kind of tell what the draw is, or the hook, if you will, which is who is the better receiver from the 22 class? Is it Drake London, wide receiver, University of Southern California, USC, or is it Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State University? So there's a whole lot of ways to take in this conversation, guys. To begin with, I'm not outright stating that those two guys are necessarily the best receiver. They're just the two best known receivers, I think, from a national audience perspective. But I definitely think that people like Treylon Burks deserve to be in the conversation. I definitely think that guys like Jameson Williams, I think there's at least 5 or 6 guys you could put in this conversation, to be quite honest, guys. With that said, I want to get into the criteria that I use, and generally speaking, scouts are going to use to kind of give you a feel for a player, right? This is never the way you fully grade a player. It's meant to aid film. Like, film should always reign king. And in what you can see in person from the eye test, obviously the more you can be in front of a guy, the better opportunity you're going to have to grade that individual. But I want to talk about the things that you can look at and get a feel for who a player is. And I think there's 4 criteria from an analytic standpoint that I know I myself pay really close attention to, and I'm pretty sure the majority of the scouting world does the same thing. So the first thing you have to look at is something like a receiver value chart. So receiver value just basically is a way of grading their ability to run routes. I like to use PFF's RECV metric just because I'm not necessarily a huge fan of PFF, guys, but it's an unbiased look at it, right? It has nothing to do with me telling you this. It's an impartial party to the conversation grading them. The other thing I like to look at is a passer rating. So what guys make quarterbacks look right? Who are the receivers that make a quarterback look really, really good in the passing game? You can tell that by the passer rating. The third criteria that I like to use, and I think to me, this is probably the criteria that I think holds the most weight, especially when I go back to go look at film, which is their receiving value or their ability to run routes versus man coverage in particular. So it would be like RECV versus man. So now I'm distinguishing by man versus zone coverage and making determinations with the film's assistance to grade out a player. And then last but not least, this is probably the most controversial and the most talked about perspective of grading film and grading players. It has to do with yards per route run, which is pretty much Y divided by RR, guys, /RR, yards per route run. So this one might be a little iffy to you guys. So you're like, Gate, what the heck is that? And why would that even remotely matter? At the NFL level, guys, there is a very strong correlation between yards per route run and NFL production, okay? So basically speaking, this is a metrics to judge a player's production. And all it is taking your total yards over the season and weighing it by the amount of routes that you run on a given season, and it's giving you the average, right? So for this past year, you can take a wild guess at who ranked number 1 in yards per route run. Cooper Kupp. like it shouldn't be hard to figure that one out, right, guys? So, I mean, it's a way of judging the production of a player, but I will warn, it's not the, be-all, tell-all that sometimes it's made out to be. I will caution people that it doesn't always translate the best from the college game to the pro game because there's a lot of factors to consider. But if you're looking at deep round players, guys that are way down on the board, knowing their yards per route run is definitely a way of measuring productivity. But I'll give you some cautionary tales. So on the positive side, has there ever been a case of where yards per route run gave us a pretty good idea that this guy at the next level is going to be pretty good? Yes, Quez Watkins. Quez Watkins is one of the things that stood out to me when I graded him back in 2020, guys, is that he had a 3.03 mark in the yards per route run. It's the first thing that drew my attention to his film to go check him out. And then from the film, I was able to say, hey, there's some explosion to this guy. Like, if he ever gets down the full route tree and learns some little subtleties about running an NFL route tree, he's going to be really good. But on the flip side, has ever been a guy that just had really, really bad, YRR, yards per route run numbers that became very good in the league? Absolutely. Same draft class, Darnell Mooney, right? Darnell Mooney, I think, was a 5th-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Quez Watkins was a 6th-round pick. These are both late-round guys, both completely different markers on that yards per route run. Don't solely trust that statistic, guys. You will hear a lot of people talk about it. Understand that it is useful, and in the NFL, it's incredibly useful, especially if you're looking for fantasy football type things of getting guys who can maybe potentially produce points depending on the type of league you're in. But from a projection standpoint to the league, it's a difficult story to make. And I'll give you some more numbers on the story. So who are some of the guys where YRR had it completely right? Yards per route run. Michael Gallup, 4.34. Devontae Parker, 4.25. CeeDee Lamb, 2.99. Amari Cooper, 2.99. Tyler Boyd, 3.86. Sterling Shepard, 3.85. Marquise Hollywood Brown, 3.79. But for every positive, there's always these negatives, guys. They got it really wrong on Andy Isabella, Kendall Wright, Tywan Taylor, Josh Doxson. There's always misses to go with these, hits. So just be careful with the yards per route run. Understand it's just a part of the story, but it doesn't necessarily have the strongest correlation back to the league. So be a little careful with that. But also realize that the three of the guys that were drafted this past year had really good marks. Devontae Smith set the record, 4.39. The guy that was right behind him and would have also set the record if he didn't get injured and Devontae didn't advance forward into the offense was Jalen Waddle at 4.38. And then the other guy that was really ranked up there highly was Elijah Moore at 3.85. Those three guys all turned out to be pretty good in the league. So I'm not saying there's no use to the yards per route run. I'm just saying be careful. It can fool you. It's not a definitive thing. If you see a really high YRR and they're in like the SEC or something, it is probably something to pay attention to. But understand that the level of competition with YRR in particular can get a little murky here. So let's get into this idea of talking about Drake London, and let's talk about Garrett Wilson and the rest of this draft class. So if you look at who did PFF grade as the best route runner in 2021, it was Drake London with a 91.8 grade as a route runner. Now I will warn you, last year, Devontae Smith, highest graded route runner, 96.1. Devontae Smith is a very good route runner. We see that. They definitely had that part of it right, guys. Not going to argue with them. Number 2 on this list, the Sky Moore, 91.6. Lord Brunson, LB, I know you guys are a little ticked off with the Jimmy G comments with LB, but he did get something right in one of his recent videos, which was he did a mock draft, and he had Sky Moore like in a 3rd or 4th round. Somehow he had slipped in that draft, and he was like, I feel like this is incredible value. Yeah, I would tend to agree that Sky Moore in a 3rd or 4th round, that's crazy good value for Sky Moore. That's a 2nd-round pick all day long, maybe even back half of the 1st round. Like, you get Sky Moore that late in the draft, like LB, that's a heck of a job. Number 3, in terms of route running, Treylon Burks with a 90.8 grade. Number 4 is Jahan Dotson, Penn State, 87.2. Number 5 was David Bell, Purdue, 86.9. Number 6, Jalen Tolbert, Southern Alabama, 85.7. A guy that's having a really good Senior Bowl right now. And I got to tell you, if you look at some of the underlying advanced analytics on Jalen Tolbert, there's some reason to think that this guy might be kind of one of these dudes that maybe comes from a small school that has a lot of success in the NFL. There's reason to suspect that he could be pretty good. Number 7, Jameson Williams, Alabama, 85.1. Number 8, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State, 84.5 grade. Number 9, Romeo Doubs, Nevada, 83.7. One of the guys I like a lot from this draft class, to be honest. Number 10, Chris Olave, Ohio State, 79.9. Number 11, John Mechie III, Alabama, 79.5. Number 12, Charleston Rambo, Miami, 78.8. Number 13, Alec Pierce, Cincinnati, 76.4. Number 14, Justin Ross, Clemson, 73. And then number 15, George Pickens, 71.1 UGA. I will tell you right from the jump, guys, I used all of 2020 stats for George Pickens because he didn't play enough games in 21 for a lot of these things to be useful, guys. So I'm not going to put up a guy that ran less than 200 routes and give you his yards per route run. Like that would be ridiculous. Even judging his route running abilities, RECV, would be ridiculous, which is what we just did. So overall, Drake London, number 1 rated wide receiver in terms of route running. Now, I do want to flip this, and I'm going to go to another stat here. It's one thing to say you're a good route runner, but I think we all know the measuring stick, ladies and gents. The measuring stick is very, very, very easy. It's your receiving value, right? Your route running versus man coverage. I want to know, what can you do with a defender in your face pressing you? Can you win that way? Because I think that's a better use of knowing if a guy can run routes or not. So number 1, Drake London, USC, still there again, guys. 87.1. Remember, 96.1 grading last year for Devontae Smith. So you can see there's a little downward trajectory with this receiving core in terms of the way they're being viewed as route runners. Not that they're not good. There's some good dudes on this list, but there's no one that was like that really high level guy. Number 2, Charleston Rambo, Miami, 83.8. Charleston Rambo is kind of an interesting case, guys. I want to get to him later in this video. He's a risky dude, and he's not rated very highly. He's rated like a 6th, 7th round guy currently. But there's some interesting things around Charleston Rambo, to be honest. He's really down on the list in certain metrics and then really high on other ones. And this is a metric that I consider to be very important, which is beating man coverage. And he's a second-graded wide receiver at doing that. Number 3, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State, 83.4. You see, he might have been ranked overall as number 8 in terms of route running, which wasn't a bad standing for Garrett Wilson with an 84.5 grade. But when you lock it up where he's just man-on-man with the guy, he's winning. It's the 3rd-rated receiver in this draft class, Garrett Wilson, 83.4. Number 4, Alec Pierce, Cincinnati, 81.3. Another one of these guys that on certain metrics, it doesn't look good, and he's very much a vertical receiver. This is a guy that's a lot of go route type stuff, corner routes, that kind of stuff. With that said, there were a few metrics that he's ranking very high on, and it's very interesting to see because he's a very raw route runner. I've seen enough of his film to tell you guys it ain't all the way there as a route runner. But I just think his pure physical size and the fact that he goes in practice against some really good secondary members on Cincinnati. I mean, let's be real. That's a really good secondary there that he faces every day in practice. If that young man ever gets it down and you're in the right offense, that's a pretty good vertical threat for a team. I'm not going to lie to you. Number 5 versus man coverage, guys. Treylon Burks, Arkansas, 80.8 grade. Top 5. Number 6, John Mechie III, Alabama, 80.4. Number 7, Sky Moore, Western Michigan University, 79.9. Number 8, David Bell, Purdue, 79.7 grade. Number 10, I'm sorry, there must have been a tie here somewhere. Hang on. No, I'm sorry. Number 9, my bad, guys. I went from 8. Let me go to 8 to 9. Number 9, George Pickens, University of Georgia, 78.8. So what we see right from the jump is some of these bigger guys, right? George Pickens. You look at Alec Pierce, Charleston Rambo. It's not the biggest dude, but he's got some size to him. These guys that don't necessarily rank well in other metrics when we're looking at making the quarterback right, so talking about ratings, passer ratings, and then we talk about just beating man coverage because sometimes man coverage isn't about gaining separation. It's just about taking the football away. These guys graded really highly, which is interesting to see. Number 10 was Jameson Williams, Alabama, 77.7. Number 11 is Romeo Doubs, Nevada, 76.6. Number 12, Jalen Tolbert, South Alabama, 75.5. Number 13, Justin Ross, Clemson, 71.3. I got to be honest on you. I still like Justin Ross a lot, but the underlying analytics do concern me about Justin Ross. He doesn't rank well at anything. So that is a little concerning because I do feel like there was a moment in time where Justin Ross had a lot better film than when he put on film in 21. So you're really banking on potential here. He does not have the markers of what we saw from T. Higgins coming out. So I'm a little concerned there, but, if Justin Ross is floating around the 4th round, it just depends on how much he's going to get devalued in this draft. I thought he would surely be a 2nd-round pick, but I'm not so sure on that anymore. I mean, that's a guy I would pay attention to the value where it ends up being. Number 14, Chris Olave, Ohio State, 70.9. Not particularly good at beating man coverage. Number 15, Johan Dotson, Penn State. The last-ranked guy versus man coverage, 67.5%. I would also guess, though, when it comes to Jahan Dotson, it's a little difficult to say that because how many dudes are going man coverage on Jahan Dotson? How many opportunities are there to grade him on that? Because he's so explosive as a player, you got to be a little careful going man coverage on him. So that might be more so to do with he's not a big guy. He's not going to elevate over top of people. And then there's not a lot of teams that are going to be foolish enough to go man coverage on him. So we've talked about receiving value. We've talked about where these guys rank in terms of that versus man coverage. Now I want to talk about making your quarterback right. So which guys from this draft class make the quarterback right? And we can tell this by the passer rate. Who made their quarterbacks look particularly good? Number 1, Treylon Burks, Arkansas, 155.3 passer rating grade when being targeted. Wow. I'm pretty high on Treylon Burks, guys. I think he's going to be quite good in the NFL. Number 2, Jameson Williams, Alabama, 143. Number 3, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State, 141.7. Number 4, Romeo Doubs, Nevada, 130.6. Number 5, George Pickens, UGA, 128.9. You get what I'm saying? With these guys that are rated lower in other categories, such as like route running, but they beat man coverage because of pure physical size, and then they increase their passer ratings when they're targeted. They make the quarterback correct or make them look good, also because of that physical size. And look who's right below him at number 6. Alec Pierce, Cincinnati, 126.7. Number 7, Sky Moore, Western Michigan, 124.5, 124.5. Number 8, Chris Olave, Ohio State, 121.5. Number 9, John Tolbert, Southern Alabama, 116.9. Number 10, John Mechie III, Alabama, 116.1. Number 11, David Bell, Purdue, 114.5. Number 12, Drake London, USC, 114.3. Kind of shocked that Drake London, as good as he is versus man coverage, as good as he is in general as a route runner, when you look at the passer rating in terms of making the quarterback right, and let's be clear, 114.5 rating or 114.3 rating is not exactly bad, but I just thought he'd be higher on the list. I thought he'd be up around the 120 or above mark. So I'm a little shocked that, Drake London is this far down, but I'm going to get into the complexity of this particular analytic, marker in a second, because I do think there's a little deception that can be done here. Jahan Dotson, Penn State, number 13, 109.6. Number 14, Charleston Rambo, Miami, 103.8. And then number 15, Justin Ross, Clemson, 87.4. Remember I told you that I was a little shocked at how bad Ross was across all of these categories, which I just didn't expect. I will say passer rating, buyer beware. Sometimes a dude's just not good. So even if you're winning, if the dude doesn't have accuracy, what good does it do you, right? And I think that has to be considered, man, that maybe some of these guys are bad for, their markers are down in terms of passer rating because the quarterback's not very good. I do think that that's a particular, aspect of things to where if you got a really good quarterback, he can make you look pretty good too. And, that could go both ways. So, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, little down on Drake London being there at 12, but I do think Drake London's a pretty good route runner, guys, to be quite honest. All right, now we'll get into the yards per route run and how this is the fourth analytic, kind of metric we're going to use here. Yards per route run. Number 1 at 3.57 yards per route run was Treylon Burks, Arkansas. Number 2 at 3.52 yards per route run was Drake London, University of Southern California, USC. Number 3, Sky Moore, Western Michigan University, 3.40. Number 4, Jalen Tolbert, Southern Alabama, 3.16. Number 5, Jameson Williams, Alabama, 3.12. Number 6, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State, 3 yards per route run. Number 7, David Bell, Purdue, 2.70 yards per route run. Number 8, Jahan Dotson, Penn State, 2.56 yards per route run. Number 9, Charleston Rambo, Miami, 2.54 yards per route run. Number 10, John Mechie III, Alabama, 2.41 yards per route run. Number 11, Alec Pierce, Cincinnati, 2.38 yards per route run. Number 12, Romeo Doubs, Nevada, 2.30 yards per route run. Number 13, Chris Olave, Ohio State, 2.29 yards per route run. Number 14, Justin Ross, Clemson, 2.06 yards per route run. Number 15, George Pickens, University of Georgia, 1.93 yards per route run. This is the bigger 4 metrics used to kind of grade where a guy is. And then you go to their film, guys. You want to see what they're producing on film. You want to judge the competition, all that kind of stuff. What I will say here is, once again, when you're looking at yards per route run, you probably need to know kind of an underlying baseline, which generally speaking, the marker I see is at 2.27 is about where they mark it as like kind of the median or the average, if you will. But I will say, like I said, very, very, very high correlation when you look at pro football. Iffy. It's very sporadic when you look at college football and trying to project that to the NFL. So I would say definitely be buyer beware on the yards per route run. There's definitely some solid cases of where it worked out, and there's some other cases where it's like, okay, this is too far all over the place. Now, Just to give you some heads up on some big-time players that have come out recently and where they ranked in this statistic I haven't talked about yet. Jamar Chase, 3.52 yards per route run. Same exact marker as Drake London, guys. Brandon Ayuk, 3.04 yards per route run, which is, very similar to guys like, Garrett Wilson and Jameson Williams. Then you look at guys like Quez Watkins, 3.03, right there in that same area. Gabriel Davis had a 2.95. Justin Jefferson was only 2.64. One of the best receivers in the league, guys. Brian Edwards, 2.58. Very undervalued guy, in my opinion. Played for the Las Vegas Raiders. Chase Claypool, 2.48. We know Chase Claypool can play. Michael Pittman Jr. only had a 2.32. So, he's pretty low on that list at a 2.32. I mean, you look at that range, it's like, Alec Pierce is 2.38. Romeo Doubs is 2.30. Chris Olave is a 2.29. I would say be careful with yards per route run, guys. I mean, you're going to hear that stuff pushed a lot. Just know that it's a very good indicator at the NFL level. It's sporadic at college level. I would buyer beware. Buyer definitely beware on that particular statistic. All right, I'm going to read some comments, guys, and then after that, I do have some more advanced analytics to talk about. Then if you guys want to talk about individual players, what the thought process is here, how I view some of these guys, let's talk, guys. Let's definitely have the discussion. Sam Shady Sports said, good morning, Gate, and all you Eagle fans out there. Appreciate you guys tuning in, guys. Thank you so much. One Above All said, yo, Gate City, what's up, man? How you doing, One Above All? Appreciate you tuning in this morning, man. You checked out my guy, Alec Pierce from Cincy and Christian Watson from North Dakota State University. So definitely Alec Pierce. So there are a few guys I couldn't break down on this one, and I broke it up by interest, guys. There are some people I think are definitely top 15 prospects, but because the interest in the community wasn't high enough, I figured I would try to raise your interest when I get to the actual player profiles, when I actually break down the individual players and show you film. So some of the guys that weren't on this one is Khalil Shakir, Boise State, Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, who I think is very much a really good gadget player. I think he's an incredible gadget player. Javon Hiley, I think is how you say his name, the Coastal Carolina receiver, pretty good player. Christian Watson, Trey Turner from Virginia Tech, Malachi Carter from Georgia Tech, and then Zachary, I don't know how you say his name, man. Franklin, University of Texas San Antonio. Those guys in particular, I've seen film of all those guys, and I do think that some of them are better than what a lot of people might realize, but I didn't put them on this list for that reason, One Above All. But they will be part of the player profiles that get broken down later in the year. So that's going to really starting next week. I'll start doing player profiles. What's up, Takeem the Dream? How you doing, buddy? Good morning to you, man. Double R1017 said, what's up, Gates? Couldn't wait for this because Garrett Wilson was my favorite wide receiver in this class. Wilson and Burks are my favorite targets for the Eagles if they choose to get a wide receiver in the draft. He's got pretty good, decent analytics. I think there's a really good receiving class, to be honest with you guys. I think this is an incredibly talented receiving class. I Make Music. What's up, buddy? He said Jameson Williams is the best receiver in the draft. He's so fast. The problem with Drake London is he doesn't have speed. He wins differently. He wins by solid route running, man. Cree said, what are your thoughts on Emeka Emezi? Cree, I'm going to be biased. I'm an NC State guy. Emeka Emezi is one of these contested catch kind of guys, big, strong hands, physical player. I don't think he's particularly great route runner. I still think he's learning. I definitely think he's a guy in the 5th, 6th round, that kind of prospect. Yes, absolutely. But I think he's got to be a fit. I think he's got to be the right fit for a scheme. Pierce is very reliable. I live in Ohio and have followed him his entire career. He has good speed and catches passes that most wide receivers can't. He is a possession receiver. We're going to get into some of those numbers, Big Al. We're going to definitely kind of talk about things like average depth of target. We're going to talk about passes over 20 yards. We're going to talk about yak per reception, guys. We're going to definitely get into those statistics, but I just want to do some comments for a little bit. One Above All says, I love what I see from Pierce. I kind of lean with him over Watson, but I like them both. What's up, 2020 Vision? I'm glad you made it in early, man. Cree said, good morning to all the mighty Eagles nation. Takeem said, John Hightower got released today. Ooh. Takeem, the crazy thing is that I still think there's talent with John Hightower. I honestly think that it's not an issue of talent. There's something else going on there. I honestly think that there was real talent with John Hightower. He said he is perfect for us and won't cost a lot. Can get him in the 3rd round. Sorry, I think I missed the context of who you're talking about. Oh, yeah. You're talking about the Cincinnati receiver, Alec. Yeah, he's pretty good, man. Didn't you say 153.8? Isn't that a perfect passer rating? Actually, no, it's not. Actually, believe it or not, he actually gave a passer rating. Hang on, let me find it for you. The passer rating for Treylon Burks was a 155.3. Pretty close to being perfect, but not quite. Dubs is my guy. What's up, Antonio Holmes? How you doing, buddy? Nevada has a really good offensive pieces with Carson Strong and their tight end, who I want the Eagles to draft. Yes, you're very correct there, Antonio. 100% agree with that. Red Eagle, what's good, man? I appreciate you joining the community recently. I appreciate that, buddy. So what's up, Gate City? Treylon Burks is the only one I would take first round. Reminds me of Metcalf, DK Metcalf. My bad, guys. Antonio said Jameson Williams also for first round. He will still get drafted in the first round. Probably so. Jackson Dart USC is not CJ Stroud, Desmond Ridder, or Carson Strong. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Allison. I definitely see what you're saying. 2020 said, I think wide receiver corps needs to get bigger and stronger. Burks and London are my guys. There's some pretty good guys on this list. You know, they may not be the best. Like, don't get me wrong. In terms of route running, Drake London's a very good route runner. He really is. Treylon Burks is a pretty strong route runner and a very good yak guy. But there's definitely some guys that developmental. Romeo Dubs, I think, is a pretty good player. I think he's a physical football player. Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, I think there's something there with him. There's definitely a few guys in this draft class. 2020 Vision says, how much of a comp is London to Mike Evans? I don't actually like the comp at all, 2020. I get why people are saying it because of the body frame. But I don't think that he's that 7, 8, 9 route guy that people think. He's got the ability to do it. It's there, and maybe he develops into that type of Mike Evans guy. But I think Mike Evans was a further ahead on that 7, 8, 9 technique, those route concepts, than what you see from Drake London. I think Drake London's a little bit more of the mid-developing game, to be quite honest. But we're going to get into that because there's some underlying analytics here, 2020, and I was definitely getting to that point. I actually don't like that comp at all. I think it's the wrong comp. Jalen Reagor in a 2023 7th-round pick to Las Vegas Raiders for Bryan Edwards. I mean, I don't know if they would take it to Keem, but I would definitely want that to happen. Jinx951 said Keenan Allen is a 4.7 40 guy, and the man gets around 100 catches a year. Speed isn't everything. Yeah, route running is what really matters, to be quite honest, Jinx. And I would also say that I don't think that, in my opinion, I don't think Drake London's going to run that bad. I think he's going to be a 4 or 5 or below guy. I mean, I don't think he's going to run that bad, to be quite honest. Williams is 6'2", 189 and projected at 4.25 40. Dude can fly, man. He's fast. I saw different projections, though, Mad Hatter, to be fair. I've seen guys say he's a little bit more of a high 4.38 to like low 4.4, 4.2, 4.3 area. So, I mean, they're a little all over the place, but yeah, I mean, they're both – I agree with you, Mad Hatter. I mean, he's a very good football player. He really is. He said, I love me some Burks. Do you think Drake separates well enough versus man? My bad if you mentioned this already. I was working. No, it's all good. Yes, he's the best. He is the best receiver overall in route running, just general route running and versus man coverage. He's the highest graded wide receiver in this class in both of those aspects of the game, one above all. And no need to apologize, man. I get some of you guys got to actually, you got to actually work. You can't just sit here and talk football all day. I get it, man. No biggie, bro. That's why I'm trying to get the podcast going, guys. I got to pay for a platform to put it on so some of you guys at work can just plug some headsets in or something and do what you're doing and be able to hear what I'm saying, but maybe not get the visual, because I know some companies are weird about that. Antonio said, how fast is Olave? He looks so smooth, but nobody catches him. Hard to say, Antonio. That's a good question. My guess is mid-4 range, mid 4.4, 5 to 4.48, somewhere in that area, but hard to say, man. Sometimes it's just about the length of the stride too, and just how smooth you are and like how much ground you can gain in said, time and space. I think sometimes that gets a little underrated with guys. Do you see anybody who is special in this class? Special. Not like Jamar Chase special. Jalen, I don't see that. I do think that Treylon Burks has he's got the underlying like athleticism to be something special. But I don't think it's like a guarantee day one type athlete like Jamar Chase. I think that London is really good, very good route runner, underrated. I can't say that he's like a game changer though, like Jamar Chase is. I think that the young man from Ohio State, not Olave, but geez, guys, I'm sorry, Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson is a guy that's, does all the little things right, man. And that Ohio State receiving core was stacked. I mean, I can't remember the name of the guy, but their slot receiver ridiculously good, guys. I mean, I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to watch their slot receiver, but hey, man, Olave, Wilson, and that slot receiver, all three of them dudes could play, man. What's up, James? He said, good morning, Coach. Mechie is a good route runner, would be a good second-round pick for the Eagles to play with Slim Reaper. Yeah, Mechie's one of those weird ones, man, to where if you looked at his numbers versus man, he's a sixth-ranked receiver in this draft class versus man coverage, which tells you there's clearly an ability to separate. There's clearly an ability to play well. But then when you look at his numbers when it comes to like overall route running, he's ranked 11th at a 79.9. So I'm not sure what's going on there with zone. I don't know. I mean, to me, a lot of times zone is a feel for the game type thing. So hard to say, man. I would need to do a little bit more film study, James, to try to understand why he's doing so well against man coverage. But his numbers are very, pedestrian versus zone coverage, which is strange. What's up, Sam Shady? He said, hey, Gabe, we should talk about that podcast idea. I've got a few places I've been looking into doing a podcast on. What's up, Bobby Murphy? How you doing, bro? Drew Smith, what's good, buddy? He said, I really like Treylon Burks in this draft. Wouldn't be mad if we drafted him with one of our picks if he's there. Yeah, 100%. Stupid talk to text. Don't worry about it, man. It's all good. Dank Burrito said, I like a lot of the receivers class. David Bell would be nice. I like Mechie and Justin Ross as well. Yeah, Justin Ross is definitely a weird one because I hate the underlying analytics on the player. The underlying analytics are just not good on Justin Ross. But there was a time where I watched film on Justin Ross right around the T. Higgins time, and I thought to myself, like, hey, man, like Justin Ross is really going to be the next big thing for Clemson. I got to see more film on him, Dank. I got to see a heck of a lot more film on him to try to figure out what went on there. I don't think it's any coincidence that it might have something to do with the quarterback play too. Special, Burks and Williams. What's up, Shonuff? How you doing, buddy? And Ohio State had Jameson Williams at one point. Wow, yeah. I mean, they're loaded at wide receiver, man. They're crazy loaded there. Burks, London, Williams, Pickens, Wilson, my top five. My sleeper is Christian Watson from North Dakota State. No more 5'10-ish wide receivers. They can separate and win, though, Jalen. You know what I mean? Like, I look at, like, Christian Kirk. He's not a big guy. The dude just wins at the NFL level. He beats man coverage, and he makes plays down the field. I mean, at some point, we need guys that can win. I agree that the bigger need on this team is to have a guy that can erase mistakes, a true boundary side wide receiver. I 100% agree, but I just think this team in general just needs dudes that can win on the football field. Jinx said, Burks and Wilson, to me, are the only guys comparable to the top 5 wide receiver prospects in the past 2 years. Maybe London as well. I was so much higher on Olave last year than I am this year. Yeah, Olave fell off a little bit, and his story's a little complex to, like, what exactly happened to Olave. But, yeah, I mean, ranking down at 14th, versus man coverage out of the 15 guys I broke down, wasn't happy about that, man. He should have been better than that. Since Drake grades very well versus man, who is your comp for Drake in the NFL if there is one for a guy his size? Tough to say. I don't think Drake is particularly a great yak receiver. I'm trying to take a look and see where he ranked. He ranked 9th in yak. I think that there are some similarities to his former classmate in Pittman, but Pittman is just so much more of a West Coast offense type. He's just a yak guy. I mean, he fits the West Coast offense so well. Hard to say, man. I got to think about it. I'd have to think a little bit more about it, one above all. Takeem said Mechie is a 3rd-round prospect. Why are people overvaluing him as a second-round pick. I thought he was a second-round pick until I kind of got a little bit deeper into it, Takeem. And then I kind of saw that, like, oh, okay, it's not really there. Like, he probably is, like, maybe back end of the second round, early third round. I kind of agree that's about where I would think his value is. Dank said, I think the injury hurt him. And DJ, their quarterback, wasn't very good. Yeah, I agree. Their quarterback was not very good at all last year. 2020 said, I think London is already dominant on 50-50 balls. And if you're saying he's a good route runner, just makes me hope we can get him. Jinx said, agree. Vincent said, Jameson Williams got legit Randy Moss speed. Drake London reminds me of Mike Evans and was crazy productive. I don't think he's Mike Evans, man. I think that's just people are oversimplifying it, and the underlying data is not there. He's not a 7-8-9 tech. He's not a 7-8-9 route tree guy, and that's what Mike Williams is. I think I can see some of the similarity in the frame, Vincent, and I definitely think in the mid-developing game, between 10 and I'd say 15 yards or so, I see the Mike Evans ability there, but he doesn't have that same ability on those vertical concepts. It's not quite the same. Shakur, what's up, buddy? He said, what's good, Gate City? What type of wide receiver should the Eagles draft? Speed and size, or should we go size? I mean, I think the bigger need is to get a split end boundary side receiver, a guy that can erase mistakes. I definitely think it's a bigger need. But you can't always guarantee you're going to get that guy. And if there's a guy that can separate versus man coverage, is explosive, and can make plays, contested catches, like a Jameson Williams, I know we're going to deal with an injury, and you don't know exactly where he's going to be. But I definitely think that there are guys like that should be still in consideration. I mean, would I love to have like Treylon Burks? Absolutely. Treylon Burks to me is that's the West Coast offense guy. Like, that's the guy I see kind of Michael Pittman-esque there to his game. Jeremiah said, what's good, Steve? I'm concerned with Smitty's mindset as he looks across the league at his peers. Smitty's got his own work to do, Jeremiah. He shouldn't be looking at his peers and thinking anything other than, you know what? When I looked at my yards per route run, which is a great metrics, I ranked 40th. I need to fix my own self. I still think Smitty's got tremendous talent. He can separate. There's definitely some things Jalen needs to do to help that young man out, like get the ball out of his hands on time when he's open. No doubt about it. But Smitty's got his own work to do, too, to be fair. What's up, Ken? How you doing, buddy? He said, line first pick, linebacker second pick, sell the third pick for a quarterback next year. All first rounders. We still have 8 picks left to do some dealing to move up and get best available when we need an all-pro. Jeremiah said, get them likes up, guys. I appreciate it, guys. If you're enjoying the content, if you could do me a favor and just drop down the comment section for 1 second, hit the like button, and come back to the comments, be greatly appreciated, guys. I'd be very grateful for that. Takeem said, Christian Watson is a 5th-round prospect. He measured in at 6'4" at the Senior Bowl. If the Eagles miss out on Allen Robinson, DJ Shark, Alden Tate in free agency, I'd use a late 5th-round pick on him. Christian Watson, I like Christian Watson. I also like Jalen Tolbert, but I'm afraid he's going to climb. I think he's going to be a 2nd-round pick now, Jalen Tolbert. But if Jalen Tolbert was still there in the 3rd round, I really like Jalen Tolbert a lot too. I think he's pretty good. Are Drake London and Mike Evans comparable in certain aspects? Yes. The frame of the body, that kind of stuff, sure. Mid-developing game, there's some similarities, but Drake London is not quite as great as people think at that 7, 8, and 9 routes. He's not quite there in that route tree progression yet. Doesn't mean he won't get there and he won't eventually become a Mike Evans type, but I think it's a little early to give him that. Charleston Rambo is giving me Justin Jefferson vibes. Do you see an A.J. Brown comp with David Bell? That's tough, man. A.J. Brown's just a tough yak guy, man. He gets yards, and he gets the dirty, hard yards, man. I definitely get where you're saying because David Bell's tough as nails, too. I get it. Maybe. I'd have to think more on that, Dank. I'd have to think a little bit more and see some more film. Crease, never mind. You already addressed my question regarding Drake London. It's all good, guys. I got that comp because a lot of people kept saying it. Like I said, in the mid-developing game, in the frame, I get where people are growing, but he's not what Mike Evans is in the 7, 8, 9 technique, those routes. He's not there yet. Daxton Hill is good if we get in the 2nd round. Double R 1017 said Jameson Williams is cool. I'm not really sold on his route running. Maybe that can develop at the next level, but to me, Williams is Ted Ginn. I think the potential superstars at wide receiver are Wilson and Burks. I definitely think Wilson and Burks are both very good, and I think Drake London is very good. I would say that I think I would probably rate Jameson Williams a little higher than you did as a route runner, but I will say that versus man coverage, there needs to be improvement here with Jameson Williams. He needs to be better versus man coverage. But I will say that the speed it's going to make it hard for teams to man up on him, to be honest. Vincent said Drake London, like Mike Evans, is a physical outlier at the position. The skills and athleticism in a 6'5", 230-pound frame is so rare. He's not 230 pounds, Vincent. That's way over what he is. Evans was fast, but London may be a more refined route runner underneath. I think Evans is a far better route runner, to be quite honest, at this stage if you're comparing them. But in terms of coming out of college, I think London is light years ahead of where Evans was as a route runner. I just think Evans had the physicality and the physical attributes that you can't find, but he's not 230 pounds, man. That's nowhere near. He's nowhere near that. Kuiper compared Drake London to Mac Hollins on a pro level. I'd have to see where he's going with that one. I don't agree with that take, but I mean, hard to say, man. I would say that Mac Hollins was an incredible deep. When he was at Carolina, he was really good at those vertical route concepts. It's not really Drake London's game. It's really not, guys. Shakur said, cool. Andrew Booth can go in the second. Oh, got you. I don't think Booth's going to go in the second, guys. I definitely think that. I mean, it's a possibility. Nasty left hook. I'm not saying that it 100% will or won't happen, but I still feel like Booth is probably destined to be more of the back end of the first round. Daxton Hill isn't making it to pick 51. Heard Christian Watson is balling out in the Senior Bowl drills, outplaying every wide receiver. I don't know if he's outplaying every wide receiver. So far, the praise has been towards Jalen Tolbert from Southern Alabama, not Christian Watson. But they both have pretty good. They both had pretty good couple of days there. I'm going for a big target at wide receiver, Burks and Bell. Sakimi could. Brady did make it all the way to the 6th round. Alec Pierce or Dubs? Ooh, showing off. That's hard to say, man. I mean, I need more film study to go into depth here. Pierce is a little bit more of a raw route runner when you compare him to, a guy like, see, this is where it gets tough, like Dubs. Dubs came from a highly productive offense, though, to be fair. Dubs had a really good tight end and a really good quarterback with him. I will say that, we can look down on Pierce, but versus man coverage, yes, he's not the greatest route runner, but he beats dudes in man coverage just by his physical size, beats them. He's not very nuanced as a route runner, you know what I mean? And then I look at a guy like Dubs, and Dubs is down there below Jameson Williams versus man. So, I mean, he's got some improvement to do. So, I mean, there's reason to put Pierce above him, no doubt. That's hard, man. That's a difficult one. I like both players a lot, to be honest, sure enough. Brady isn't a safety. We need someone who will fit with Smitty and Quez. Quez is just as fast as Jameson Williamson. What are your thoughts on Juju? I think he's an upgrade for our wide receiver 2 and 3, but it's not worth the pay. I mean, it depends upon what he wants to be paid. And isn't he still under contract technically? I thought he was more of a trade candidate, I thought. But I don't know. I mean, Jeremiah, I'd have to look at what the expected value is of the contract. And if he's still under contract, you got to keep in mind, we don't pay his cap number. We pay the base salary and any incentives that kick in after we acquire the contract. Takeem said, I'm sorry, nasty left hook. My bad, guys. Said, you're not a psychic, and if you are, give me lottery numbers. I think the Eagles are going quarterback, defensive end, cornerback in round 1. I think there's a few quarterbacks, Gates, that will fly up the boards. Pickett, Corral, Strong, and Malik. Strong's not going to fly up the board, man. He's got a serious knee injury. That I've been high on. I've told you right from the beginning, I think Strong's the best quarterback in this draft class. I said that back in November. With that said, he's got a really serious knee condition. So I don't think he's sneaking into the first round, to be honest. I only see 3 guys in the first round, which is Pickett, Corral, and Malik. The other guy that might go into the first round is Sam Howell, but his measurables came in shorter than what people thought. He didn't measure in as tall as what was expected. But I can tell you Sam Howell spins the ball, and he's very accurate. Sam Howell's been in quarterback, he's been in those quarterback camps since he was just a little kid. He's a guy that's been playing that position for a very long time, and he's going to look good. He's going to, he's got a good arm. He's athletic. He doesn't have Carson's strong arm. He doesn't have Malik Willis's arm, but he's got a decent arm. And to be honest with you guys, he's very accurate with the football. Now, I could see a team potentially going after him in the first round, and that being a little unexpected. I don't think Carson Strong's going to make it to the first round, although I think that talent-wise, he's a first-round pick. But because of that knee, I think there's going to be reservations 2020. Just look at this Burks kid. I'm not touching him until the late second or third. I don't see it, understand the analytics, but at some point you have to wow. What games did you look at, though, Jalen? You must be a teenager. But I don't know wide receivers is my disclaimer. I'll be honest with you, Jalen. You're not getting him in the second round. I think he's a top 12 pick, man. Double R 1017 said, I'm all for the Eagles taking a wide receiver in rounds 2 through 4 and still signing a vet to play wide receiver opposite of Smitty, Rager, Whiteside, and Ward should be gone, so spots will be open. Rager's not going anywhere. Double R 1017, I can tell you that now. Contract's too expensive for him to go anywhere right this second. Whiteside, possibility. Ward, very strong possibility. Those two guys might be gone. Unfortunately, I feel like we're destined and doomed to stick with Rager unless you can find a trade partner. You would need to trade him outward. Jahan Dotson, Penn State, only dropped 2 of his 93 catchable targets this season. It's very true, Matt Hatter. Very, very impressed with his hands, and that's a very solid point, Matt Hatter. I came away pretty impressed with him. Not a guy I was very high on going in, much higher coming out. Am I the only one comfortable with Quez at the 2? Look, if you go in with Quez at your 2 and like Christian Kirk is your slot, I can live with that show enough. I mean, we'll be perfectly fine. Now, should we still try to upgrade it? I still think you try to upgrade. You know what I mean? But I mean, look, if you draft a guy that can play the slot, here's something that people don't know about, while we're talking about some of these prospects that are in this draft class, just kind of talking about Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks played the slot more than he did outside. Treylon Burks played a ton of slot receiver. He gives you the ability to be that big slot that can catch, he gives you the ability to kind of sneakily. I don't think he's the same route runner. I want to preface this by saying don't go too crazy with Treylon Burks on this comparison, but he gives you the ability, like a Keenan Allen, to play him in the slot. You can play him out of the backfield. You can play him out wide. He's got that versatility. He played 222 snaps in the slot, guys, 79 out wide this past year for Arkansas. Like, you can use him in a lot of unique ways, Treylon Burks. That's what I like about him the most, is that he's just not like he's not a guy that you just say, oh, he's only a boundary side receiver. He can play the boundary. He can play a tall slot. He can play the flanker because I think he's athletic enough. You can move him in the backfield and do some stuff with him to get a mismatch like they do with Keenan Allen and, with the Chargers. I think I called him San Diego again earlier, but the LA Chargers, my bad, guys. Juju had no production this season. I read Juju wants to go to Kansas City. Garrett Wilson gets as much separation on man defenses as I can remember a wide receiver coming out of college. Reminds me of AB. That's a little strong. Garrett Wilson is good versus man coverage, though. I mean, I'm not saying that Garrett Wilson is horrible. He's the third-rated guy here. Him, Charleston Rambo, and Drake London, they win versus man coverage for a reason. Not sure, but if Juju is a trade, no thanks. Just want to know your analysis of him as a wide receiver. Jalen said, so he signed a 1-year deal last year and he's a free agent, but Juju stay the F away from Philly. That's funny, guys. Jinx said, Burks, London, Wilson, those are the only receivers I'd be okay taking in any of them in the first 3 rounds. I have too many needs. Taking any other receiver would upset me. Jinx, I would definitely – I like the 3 guys you named. I still think Jameson Williams has value, man. I still think he's that guy. You got the knee injury. I get it, but that guy's going to be good in the NFL, I'm telling you. Juju is a free agent, signed a 1-year deal last offseason. If Strong drops beyond 51, I'd take a flyer on him. He reminds me of Nick Foles. I would take a flyer on him too. The real argument, I think, Dank, is he a second round or a third round pick? If that guy's a third round pick, you got a guy under contract for 4 years. You got an insurance policy. It makes you, definitely, man. I actually have never been impressed with Juju. Sam Howell, 6'125", 215, comp is Baker Mayfield. Horrible comp to Keem. He's way better than Baker, and he's got a way better arm than Baker does. That's not a good comp for him at all. They're basing that solely off of his size. That's a bad comp. Exactly, Dank. Yeah, that's a really bad comp, to be honest, Takeem. I hate that comp. Howell is much more polished in his reading of the – exactly. Yeah. Yeah, in terms of the ability to get the ball out of your hands, I would say that Sam Howell is up there, man. The only other guy, like Bailey's Zappy, whatever his name is, the young man, I think he's Western Kentucky. He's another one of these guys that processes and gets the ball out fast. Sam Howell has the ability, but he'll try to push it vertically. The difference is Sam Howell has a really good arm. Bailey Zapp, his arm is, I don't think it's that great. But if you want a guy that plays on time with the offense, Bailey Zapp is definitely one of those guys I could see second, third round valuation on. He said, I don't believe any of these quarterbacks in the class are first-round talents. Now, because they are the best quarterbacks, they will go first round. See, Jinx, I see it a little differently. I do think that Kenny Pickett and Matt Corral are first-round talents, even in last year's draft class, even the year before that. I still think they're first-round talents. But would you say they're one of the 32 best players, which I think is what you're getting to? No, I wouldn't say they're one of the 32 best players. Double R 1017 said, dang, guess we're stuck with him another year because I don't see who would want Rager, laugh out loud. I mean, you try to attach him to a, probably another proposition in terms of draft picks or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where we trade you one of our problematic players for one of your problematic players and something like that, maybe. What's up, Denzel? He said, hopefully Howell's draft is as good as last year's. Most of the players drafted had an impact on our season. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like Milton Williams had an impact. Landon Dickerson had an impact. Devontae, Smith had a pretty huge impact. The first 2 picks in particular had crazy impacts. Kenneth Gainwell had a good impact on this season. Teron Jackson, he did well. I mean, to be fair, he definitely did well. I think so. I really like Quez, but I don't know about it too. Not to say he can't produce at that level. It just depends. Like, to me, a number 2 is just really saying you think he can be a flanker, which I think he can be a flanker. Doesn't necessarily mean he's number 2 in the majority of progressions, right? Steve, is it possible to trade Rager for Ridley in a draft pick? If so, which round pick? I'm only asking for a guess. I don't know, man. I have no clue what they would want for him. I heard someone say that the asking, and look, I like Calvin Ridley. He's a good football player. But I did hear, would he be my choice? No, I'd much rather have Mike Williams, to be quite honest. I think Mike Williams is being slept on about how good he actually is. And he's there with Keenan Allen and still putting up numbers. Put him in there with just like Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, I think he would take off. But Calvin Ridley would certainly be a huge upgrade for this offense. That is somebody that defensive coordinators would have to respect. You got a game plan for it. And it's going to open up opportunities for Goddard. It's going to open up opportunities for Quez Watkins. It's going to open up opportunities, for Devontae Smith. Second round pick, I'm all in. I'm all in. But I still feel like they're going to want a first round pick. Even with Rager, I feel like they're going to want a first round pick still. Burks is Debo Jr., Debo Samuel. I think Quez should be a 3, but I definitely like Quez. Burks might go top 10. Yeah, I think so too, Matt Hatter. I think he's definitely trending towards the top 12 pick, unfortunately. However, I didn't see Quez lose much off the line at all. It's just Hurts is limited. I don't know if Hurts is limited showing up. I'm not disputing that part of it, but I do think there's a lot of bad takes out there from people who don't understand the way that progressions works and route concepts. And they're making these huge assumptions when they've never played the position. Like, I'm sorry, but there's one guy that does a lot of all 22 breakdown who's never played the position and doesn't have a clue what the hell he's talking about. I'm just going to be very honest about it. And the second play he put up there about missing Quez Watkins in the playoff game was a very, very easy, kind of alteration, if you will, variation to a smash concept. Quez is not in the read. There's no way that a quarterback that is where Jalen Hurts is in his career is getting the ability at the line of scrimmage to change that play. The read was Quez to Goddard. You're going low high because of the concept of where the inside bracket's playing in the outside corner that you're trying to gain the leverage on. It's like the dude had no clue what he was talking about. He's never played the position. He's never coached the position. He needs to stop making these videos because honestly, all it does is make it to where people like me have to then come around and explain this dude has no clue what the hell he's talking about. Of course, I slept on wide receiver day. You overslept? My bad, man. If Ritter drops, I'm in on it. I think Ritter's going to be like a third-round pick showing up, to be honest. Man, oh, man, I think Howie should draft Carson Strong in the second round, get a fourth for Hurts, and build our defense with 2 first-round picks and trade the third first-rounder for next year. If Quez is our third actual best receiver, I'm very happy with our receivers. Very good outtake on that, Jeremiah. Unfortunately, he is our second best, and there are other wide receivers that are better than all our receivers right now. Somewhat true. Bama's Williams is Howie's Sidney Jones in 2022 second round. And if he makes it to the second round, that would be a great value pick. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Man, oh, man. If we draft Carson Strong, then we can possibly get DK Metcalf in free agency for him to throw to. I like Burks a lot. He's somebody who has no easy comp, in my opinion, because of his size, speed, but he plays mostly out of the slot, maybe a bigger A.J. Brown. If Sam Howell is a better prospect than Baker Mayfield, then he'd be a top 5 prospect, not a top 20 prospect. Not necessarily, Takeem. That's not necessarily true, man. You know better than that take, man. Come on. Yeah, it's kind of tough to really evaluate their production due to Jalen's limitations, which is concerning. So do you think Howell dip in production is based on not having talent around him? Do you think he is better for us than Hurts? Yeah, I mean, he lost a lot of people, one above all. Do I think he's better for us than Hurts? Nah, I think that's very debatable. Do I think that he can read coverage better than Hurts right now? Probably so. Do I think that he gives you the same ability if the pocket breaks down? No, but I don't think he's a slouch. I do think he's a decent athlete. I definitely think, he's a guy that he can see coverage. I mean, he does see coverage well. I'm not in favor of trying to root for a UNC quarterback, one above all, man. That's like my adversary here. Can't do it. Dank said, that doesn't make any sense. That's like saying if Burrow is like Brady, then Burrow should have been a 6th round. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a bad take, man. You're my guy, Takeem, but that's a bad take, man. Wilson, J-Mo, Olave, Pickens, Rambo, Mechie, Burks, Ross, and round 1 or 2 would be a slam dunk. I think we just need one good rookie wide receiver and a vet, and we're good. I think Coach should do 3 wide receiver live chats and 3 defensive and pass rusher live chats. We would need a 4-hour Battlebirds podcast marathon to get those positions all done in a session. Sam Howell's mocked to go to Pittsburgh at pick 20. It's not about where they're mocked, Takeem. That has nothing to do with someone making a really, really bad assessment on what the skill set is. Like Baker Mayfield does not have the arm talent that Sam Howell does, man. He doesn't. He doesn't read the field as well as Sam Howell. Malik Willis is mocked to go to the Saints at 18. Keep in mind, man, you're talking about mocks. That doesn't mean anything, which is the next comment, which is what exactly does a mock mean? It doesn't mean anything, man. I mean, we're talking about mocks before the completion of the Senior Bowl, pro days, the combine, if that happens. Like, these mocks don't mean crap yet, man. They're nowhere near close to being the final evaluation where these guys fall. Andrew said, Coach, I can't help but think that Devontae would have doubled all his numbers had he had a quarterback that could have gotten him the ball. Too many missed opportunities by Hurts. Not doubled. Doubled, strong statement, man. Not doubled. Would he have had better numbers? Sure. Based on what people think will happen, I don't really go by mocks since it's unpredictable. Yeah, it's entirely too early for that. What's up, Dante? How you doing, man? What I miss? Talking a lot about quarterbacks, and then we started off talking about wide receiver play. Said I agree Ritter is going early third like Helen Munn went last year. Probably so. Left allow gate, let it be known. Who's the individual that's putting out wrong information? I'm not going to put their name. I'm not going to give them that kind of highlight, Seisan, but you should know who it is by what I'm saying. Like, it was a very popular video. He gave you 3 plays where he thought that Jalen Hurts missed opportunities to throw the ball into Quez Watkins. The very first example, I think, can be argumentative. You can make an argument that Quez Watkins should have been in Jalen's read. The second play, he clearly doesn't understand the route concept. And the third play was an outstanding play by Jalen Hurts to slide up and out into the pocket and get the ball to Dallas Goedert. Goedert just missed the pass. Like, I'm not going to say his name, man. He doesn't deserve it, but the dude has no clue what he's talking about. Kozer in the third and Purdy in the fourth. Anthony said, I like Burks. Preachgate. That guy wants to be JT O'Sullivan so bad. Yeah, and he has no clue what he's talking about. It's his takes are horrible. By the way, am I crazy to be interested in Willis? No, you're not. There's underlying talent is there, one above all. But I know he needs to sit and learn before being thrown into the fire. To be fair, one above all, Patrick Mahomes wasn't ready his rookie year. He wasn't ready for the NFL yet. He had to sit a year, and then we see what happened once he got in. And I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes is without flaws. I mean, we saw some of those flaws recently versus pressure, but yeah, man. How do they make 5X gloves? I meant Kohler, not Kozer, my bad. Kohler, yeah. He's the Iowa State tight end, man. I like him a lot. Occam, that's kind of my sneaky pick that I want the Eagles to make. Burks needs 5X gloves specially made. That's insane. I didn't realize that, man. It is crazy. Sam is better than Baker. He's basically Baker with a stronger arm, more athletic, and without the eagle. Baker's beard is better, though. All I got to say about Burke is Jefferson played mostly slot in college as well. It's true, Taekwon. I'm not saying that not to draft him because he played the slot. I'm just saying a lot of people don't know that he's a slot. You know, he played that much in the slot, and that if you're looking at you need a boundary side X receiver and you want to get more production out of your slot, and you still want to keep Quez, you know, giving that ability to be able to play the two and have 3 guys, Quez, Devontae Smith, Treylon Burks, that can play all 3 alignments. He fits that, you know what I mean? He'll give people that kind of, you know, flexibility to what they're asking for because he can kind of play both. Some of this Kurtz hate is unreal. I'm giving him the offseason to work on his reads and progression. He fixes that and gets better with the deep ball and with more weapons. He should be good. Then the Giants should be jumping all over Sam Howell at pick 5. No, Takeem, you don't jump on a guy. I disagree with that, man. I highly disagree with that. You don't draft a guy where the value is not yet for them. It doesn't matter. Like Patrick Mahomes was the 10th pick. Like Patrick Mahomes is the best player in that draft class. You don't just take a guy like you got to make sure the value fits. You trade back or something. Double R 1017 said a lot of y'all's favorite quarterbacks y'all love now were struggling their first 2 years or were simply game managers in better situations than Hurts was in. Mock said Mac Jones was being taken by San Francisco. That's very true, Dank. Off topic of wide receiver, good O-line in the mid-round, center Donovan West, guard Thayer Munford. Little Donkey said Hurts can build his arm strength. I was watching Joe Burrow against the Raiders. In an interview, he said his arm needed improvement, and he worked his hips and thighs. That's normally when it's a technique issue, Little Donkey. That's normally when they're working on technique issues. So if you're working your hips and thighs, that basically means that your base is off. And when your base is off, the telltale sign, think Sam Ellinger. You'll see this kind of happen is when they throw, they start getting front foot heavy, and you'll see the hips on the back foot spin around. So that back foot's hips, it'll spin around, kind of outward, kind of like an outward motion. It's not all about motion, but that's a big part of it. There is a part of it that is actual arm strength. Hurts has to be better, simply put, if he gets more consistent with reads. Left LL, guys, let me guess. Does the guy who puts the videos out wear glasses? I think so. This is why we trust your judgment. Yeah, he had no clue what he was talking about on that video. Coach Sam Howell is better than Ritter. Your thoughts? Ritter is not there in the accuracy. Sam Howell is far more accurate. Better, matter of perception, you know what I mean, James? Hard to say if I say that I think he's better. Do I think he would have more initial success? Potentially. But I also think that there's underlying talent with Ritter. You got to get his base right, and you got to get that ball placement better. Ritter is Carson Wentz 2.0. Prove me wrong. Laugh out loud. Sam Howell will go before Ritter. We're not drafting a quarterback that high. The name Ritter just screams Super Bowl champion and franchise quarterback. Brock Purdy in the my bad, guys, in the fourth, a nice project quarterback. I mean, I like the connection back to Iowa State and Tom Manning and all that. Don't get me wrong. I believe that's where Brock Purdy played. I'd have to really look at his film a little closer, Rockham. I can't say, man. Is Sam Howell a better prospect than Hurts? Yes, absolutely. Coming out of the draft, sure. Understand, Takeem, a better prospect doesn't mean that you're going to be the better player. Would you take Sam Howell at pick 15? No, I would not. At least I wouldn't think so. If we did, I don't see Howie going for a quarterback like Howell. He'd go after Pickett before Howell. I think he's going to go after like a Malik Willis, to be honest. If he goes quarterback, I think they want a particular type of quarterback, and I think it would be like a Malik Willis. What would you do with the 3 first-round picks? We're going to get into that, guys. We're going to do mock drafts later on. I don't want to give that away before I actually do the live stream. Takeem said, would you draft Sam Howell in the first round to compete with Jalen Hurts? Me personally, no. But that's got nothing to do with whether I think he can play football. I just don't believe in bringing in a guy like Sam Howell to compete with Jalen Hurts unless I believe that Sam Howell is going to be a 10 to 12-year franchise quarterback that can potentially lead you into deep playoff runs. What's up, Red Eagle? Appreciate the $5 super chat, man. He said, Gate City, what quarterback do you think will be this year's Zach Wilson, meaning flying up boards after this pro day? Flying up boards is hard to say. I don't know if we're going to have that kind of momentum. And I still think Zach Wilson, I wouldn't count him out yet, guys. Zach Wilson's ball placement in college is what made him special. The game's got to slow down for him, and then let's see what he can do with that arm talent he has. Flying up draft boards. That's relative to what people think the value is. Malik Willis, I think most people are kind of underneath the assumption that he's going to be a second-round pick. That's kind of what I'm hearing from so-called draft experts. They're saying second-round valuation. I just think that somebody that really wants Malik Willis is going to climb up into the first round and take him. Now, the problem with a player like Malik Willis is that he's probably not playing year one. You're probably stowing him away for a year before you can get him on the field, man. 50 plus in the chat and only 17 likes. Let's get that up, people. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that, man. Pickett won't be there at pick 15, but Howie will. Hal will. Kenny Pickett, I wouldn't say that, Takeem. I don't know about that. My hunch is he won't be there either, Takeem. But, there's some concerns coming out with him, man. He can't do hand measurements. I mean, the ball location with him has been very good at the Senior Bowl. Everything has been positive in terms of his ability to put the ball. But he's not a big arm quarterback, Takeem. He doesn't have a lot of arm strength. He's more of a rhythm thrower. He's a rhythm thrower. I mean, it depends. Some people are comping him to Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow has a better arm than Kenny Pickett, honestly. I know that one of the guys that I trust a lot, Max Brown, he's a former Gatorade All-American quarterback and played at USC and Pitt, so he played with Kenny Pickett his freshman year. He's pretty high on Pickett. I don't know, man. I don't know. Hard to say. Willis should fly up boards after the combine. If you're high on Hal and Jalen Hurts isn't the guy, why not draft Hal? I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts isn't the guy, though. You're creating a straw man argument, Takeem. Those words have never been said. Why are so many fans quick to give up on Hurts when he's shown flashes? Hard to say, man. I just think some people don't like him. Hal or Willis, I'm taking Willis. Willis going top 20 in my opinion. It depends on the system you run, Takeem. If you're New England, you're not going to take Willis over Hal. You know what I'm saying? Like, it depends on the system you're running. Vincent said Matt Curl is the obvious Zach Wilson comp, in my opinion. He's not going to rise the boards like that. I mean, Matt Corral's already kind of, I think, one of the two known first-round picks. I mean, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral would be the two guys I think have the best shot at being a first-round pick. And I think Malik Willis is that guy that's probably the solid third guy that's got the highest probability. And then I think there's an argument to be made that Sam Howell, people might want to control him for 5 years. and have that fifth-year option. So I think those are the guys. Past that, like I said, I think Carson Strong is honestly the most talented guy in this class. But, I think argumentative between Carson Strong and Malik Willis. But the problem with Carson Strong is he's got a huge issue with his right knee. And I don't know what the medical comps are on him. I have no clue where they're going to say the medicals are on that knee. And if it's bone on bone, he's probably going to fall pretty deep in this draft class, man. One above all said, Gates, you see my guy, Cole Strange, stand up fools in 1v1. He did get punked by my other guy, Travis Jones. Yeah, Travis Jones is impressive, man. But look good so far. We need both of them. What's your take on Bell from Purdue and Dotson from Penn State? To be honest, I watched both of their highlights and liked what I saw from both of them. So I think that Bell's got really strong hands. So I'm looking at what did he do versus man coverage, guys. He was ranked 8, 79.7. So, I mean, he can beat man coverage. It's not horrible. He's got the body frame and the size to do something. His average depth of target for him was 10.8 yards, ranked 11th overall. So, I mean, he's definitely a mid-developing route receiver. In terms of yak, can he get you any kind of yak on plays? Ranked 6th, 5.8 yards. So, I mean, I definitely think that, he's a decent prospect. Jahan Dotson, very explosive, guys. I mean, there's explosion to Jahan Dotson. Now, I don't know the valuation there because he was a lot of people are saying he's going to be a first-round pick. I still feel like that's a second-round pick to me, but it's hard to say because Jahan Dotson ranked 4th overall in route running. And then if you look at him ranking versus man coverage, his route running versus man coverage, I mean, Jahan Dotson falls way down to he's the 15th ranked receiver out of these 15 guys I broke down with a 67.5 grade versus man coverage. He's eating up zone coverage. Average depth of target for him, let's take a look. ADOT. His average depth of target is 11.4 yards, mid-developing area. Hard to say, man. I definitely think there's reason to be a little cautious with Jahan Dotson, but I will say, Drew, he just didn't drop footballs, man. Jahan Dotson had really good hands for a 5 foot, I don't know, what's he, 10 guys? 5'10", 5'11"-ish wide receiver. I mean, he definitely had really strong hands, man. Why don't you think Willis won't start his first year? Not ready, man. He's nowhere near ready to play on an NFL field yet. The underlying talent's there, Marquis Mack, but he can't read coverage yet. He's nowhere near that. Because flashes are what they are, it needs to be more consistent. PFF reported that most of the quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl drills are having a hard time in the drills. The guy whose hair hasn't moved, sorry, man, in 25 years is off a lot. Burks' hand size is 10 and a quarter. That's ridiculous. Yeah, decent size hands, no doubt about it, man. Guys, we got to be sensible. We all see Jalen's weaknesses, especially compared to other quarterbacks. However, some people are too thirsty trying to find those guys. Would Sam Bradford be a good comp for Strong? He did have some really good ball placement, and knee injuries hurt him, in my opinion. I get what you're saying in terms of the medical grade. I don't think he's as injury prone, to be fair, as Sam Bradford was. I don't think Bradford's arm strength is to Carson Strong, but to be fair, it's not like I have Bradford's film right beside these two to really compare it. But I definitely think Carson Strong and Malik Willis's arm talent, it's very clear at the Senior Bowl. You can see those two guys pop off, man. Their arm talent is far higher. Carson Strong is a beast, but that knee will scare off a lot of people. I agree. I think there's going to be teams that love him a lot, man, and they're probably going to be in on him around the second or third round. But he's a first-round talent that if he didn't have the knee concern, he probably goes in the first. Do you look into the Shrine Bowl wide receivers? I hear the kid from UCLA is great. Can't remember his name, though. I mean, you can look at 7-on-7 drills and 1-on-1 drills. I think people get a little overhyped by it. I think it's a better gauge of the corner play than it is receiver play. I mean, those drills are set up for the wide receiver to win. Nick Foles' hand size was 10 and 6'3", quarters of an inch. Whew. Nick Foles got big hands, man. Kyle Phillips is the receiver from UCLA. Kyle Phillips is the guy. Are you saying that about the other young quarterbacks that flashes are what they are? Howie's going to draft a quarterback in the first, book it. What's up, Quattrell Bishop? I don't know, man. I'm not going to try to predict what Howie will or won't do. Is Sam Howell a better prospect than Phillip Rivers? You realize you're asking an NC State guy about a UNC quarterback when the other guy's an NC State quarterback, right, Takeem? Of course I'm going to tell you Phillip Rivers. But I don't understand what your point is here. You brought up Baker Mayfield. I'm telling you that Sam Howell is better than Baker Mayfield, man. He can read coverage better than Baker can. And he's got a better arm than Baker does. Dank Burrito said the other young quarterbacks that were in his class are better and show more than flashes. Fair, to an extent. To an extent, man. Is Sam Howell a better prospect than Russell Wilson? Takeem, where are you going with your point, man? Like, you're creating these weird straw man arguments that no one else is making. We pushed back on your assessment where you said you heard that his comp was Baker Mayfield, and I told you I understand why they're saying that because of the height and the base. But you get what I'm saying? Like, it's not – you get what I mean, man? Quattrell said Sam Howell's a first. He said, I'm sorry, Steve. I'm trolling you so bad. I'm wondering. I was like, I'm wondering what you were doing, Takeem. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, if they're not. I was wondering what you were doing, Takeem. So I'm like, I don't understand. Like, why are we making these comparisons? It doesn't. I swear, Eagle fans forget development exists. Look at Dak and Russell Wilson the first year. Look back at Peyton Manning. I remember what people said about Josh Allen and Lamar. Yeah, I mean, that's my argument with them too, Double R, is that, look, I think people get it twisted, right? Because I've watched Quentin Michael, and to be fair, I don't know the comments that are being said to Quentin Michael, and I don't know the comments that are being said to Jason Avant, so I don't understand where they're coming at with their approach to it. But to say that there's no relevancy at all to the Jalen Hurts and Allen comparisons, I have to disagree. I'm not talking about the arm talent. I'm not talking about the physical traits to the player. I'm talking about Josh Allen couldn't read a defense. For 2 years, he was horrible. He was worse than Wentz. That's funny. He was worse than Hurts. To be straight up, he couldn't read a defense, and his numbers against pressure were horrendous. They went and drafted Gabriel Davis. They went and traded for Stephon Diggs. And then all of a sudden, it all clicked. The talent started clicking. I mean, am I saying we're going to get the same results with Jalen Hurts? No, I don't know that. But I'm saying I would at least give it an opportunity. I would try to put some talent around the young man, see if that doesn't help him get on schedule and do what he's trying to do. And then if it doesn't click and you're in the third year now, then I think you kind of got your answer. You have your answer on what to do. Marky Max, I'm sorry if you already went over this. No, it's all right, guys. I mean, we're going to do quarterbacks tomorrow, guys. But I would say that I would put him in probably the 4th, 5th area. If we're talking truly talent, I'd say he's 5th. We're talking about where he's going to come off the board. I got a feeling he's going to be the 4th quarterback. But to be fair, Marky, it has a lot to do with the scheme fit, right? Like, I look at – I'm trying to think here, guys. I look at, like, Desmond Ridder. Like, an organization might look at Desmond Ridder and say, we want a more athletically gifted quarterback, somebody that can give us something if the play breaks down, right? We'll work on the accuracy issues. But Carson Strong has the arm. He can play. He's a better processor. He sees the field pretty well. But he doesn't have a greatest deep ball. I mean, it's pretty at times because he's got the arm strength. But his throwing base is really flawed on passes over 25. And then he's got the knee injury. So, you know what I mean? Like, I definitely think that things can differ depending upon the scheme fit, depending upon medical grades, all that kind of stuff. The other one we haven't really talked about a whole lot of is Corral, who I think is talented. I don't know if that medical grade is going to come back, Marky Mac, to be honest, but that's tomorrow's video, to be honest, guys. What do you mean, you people? I like Josh Allen and Lamar. Maybe we can get George Kaloftis the second. You think he's going to fall that far, little donkey? I don't know he's going to fall that far. Double R. Yeah, Josh Allen was terrible in his first year. Yeah, he was. Yup, Gates, thank you. Like, we can get Nakobe Dean, Devin Lloyd, and Kyle Hamilton in the first, then George Karlaftis in the second. Well, that kind of goes to Takeem's point, which is I hope Kenny Pickett, like, there's two things here. There's two things I would like to see, okay? Just hear me out for a second, guys. number one, there's some side of me that would love to see Kenny Pickett and, a couple of these quarterbacks go early in the draft before we pick. Because then we're sliding 2 players down the board. I only think there's an opportunity for Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett to probably go in the top 14, 15 picks. So on one hand, that would slide the board and we would have our pick of guys. On the other hand, hear me out. If you got Kenny Pickett on the board, okay, and you got Matt Corral on the board, you got Malik Willis on the board, you got Sam Howell on the board, you got Carson Strong on the board, you got all these guys, right? All these supposed quarterbacks on the board. And Howie's picking 15, 16, and 19. And in 15, 16, and 19, he doesn't take a quarterback. You got your answer what they think about Hurts, right? I could see the value in both of those to where if those guys are on the board, then we know how they felt about this draft class compared to Carson. Or not Carson, Jesus. Carson Strong has messed me up with the Carson Wentz stuff, guys. Compared to Jalen. But yeah. My bad, guys. He said, hey, Steve, in my opinion, the only thing separating the second tier of quarterbacks is the talent around them in coaching. Do you mean in the draft class? I'd have to really look at it, Chris. I mean, that's fair, but without seeing it, you know what I mean? Like, I'd have to really look at who's around them because I will say in the draft class, like Carson Strong, and you can argue like Gate, I'm saying that's a first tier quarterback, but he's got Dubs out there. He's got what's the guy's name? The converted wide receiver in the tight end. We talked about him earlier in the week, guys. He slipped on my line, but he's out there. There's definitely talent on that team. Drew Johnson said, I'm late to the party. What is the verdict? Ooh, boy, that's tough, man. I'll be honest with you, for the Eagles purposes, I think Drake London is the better player than Garrett Wilson. In terms of just overall ability, I think there's an argument to be made that Garrett Wilson is the better player, Drew Johnson, to be honest. I think it all depends upon scheme fit. If the Eagles are looking for more of the West Coast option, then I think that it does make some sense to go after, a guy like Drake London, to be quite honest, guys. Now, I will say in terms of yak, Garrett Wilson did rank 6 yards of yak. So it's not like Garrett Wilson is not necessarily a yak guy. So you got to be, but I'm just talking about the frame. I don't think the physical frame is there to be that big guy that can play the boundary, catch the football, and make dudes miss. But we went over a lot, Drew, at the very beginning. We went over like criteria for grading guys, how it all kind of comes down, all that stuff. Jeremiah Awuzie Kimura, I still can't say his name, little donkey, went to the second. Nobody thought he would go past the first. It's true, but he also had an injury. You got to keep in mind, little donkey, it wasn't the talent that sunk him. It wasn't their evaluation of his talent. He had an undisclosed injury that no one knew about until like right before the draft. Do you think we will draft a wide receiver in the first, and who do you think fits our team the best? Mad Hatter, I can't rule out that we'll draft a wide receiver in the first, but ultimately I don't know. Who fits the team the best? Argumentative, right? It depends on what you're looking for. I like Treylon Burks a lot. I just don't think he's going to be there when we pick. I like London a lot. Not sure if he'll even be there when we pick, but I do like him a lot. I like Garrett Wilson a ton. Is he going to be there when we pick? Those 3 guys to me stand out. Williams and the young man or is it Williams? My bad, guys. I might have added an O-N to that young man's name. Williams, not Williamson. Williams, I think is a good player too, but he's got the knee injury. He doesn't have particularly great numbers versus man press or versus just man coverage in general. Have to see, guys. We'd have to see. I know you guys are discussing BAS right now, but I understand Falale, I can't say his name, guys, has had 2 tough days against competition. Yeah, he's a raw prospect, Andrew. I told everybody that in the video on Monday. He's a raw prospect. I think you'll get him there, though. I definitely think he'll get there with the right coaching. But if you remember on Monday's video, I did say I felt like if he went to the wrong place, yeah, could be bad, man. I know he had heart issues, though. Yeah, exactly, little donkey. Jody High Roller said random, but with Jimmy G leaving, what is your thoughts on Trey Lance? To be determined, Jody. I thought he was very good coming out of college, but he was very inexperienced. I think that some of the same issues you have with Jalen Hurts, You're going to kind of see that play out here with Trey Lance as well, to where, he's got a lot of athletic gifts. He's got a really good arm. He's got a dynamite arm on him. But can he read defenses? Is he going to be able to play on time when there's pressure in his face? Will he not immediately try to elude the pocket? Will he hang tough? That means on time, guys. And will he play in rhythm? Can he hit the rhythm step and the drop, right? Timing routes. Hit that rhythm step and then get the ball out. Be able to play the leverage of the defense and not start to hesitate and wait for a guy to come open. Like, I definitely think some of the same questions we have about Jalen Hurts, they'll be present with Trey Lance's first year too. Now, I'm not saying that, the results will be the same, but I definitely think those same question marks will be there. Now, I don't know about his deep ball. I mean, to be fair, like, I haven't watched enough to say like what I think his throwing base is on passes over 25 yards. Vincent says, no way Clarkson falls to the second. A lot of defensive ends are going first. Jermaine Johnson is tearing up Senior Bowl. Deuce had him run drills after practice. He said, I meant in the NFL. Vincent, not saying it's a sure thing, but it's definitely a possibility. We all know guys get better as quarterbacks, but how much better will Hurts get? And will he be an upper echelon quarterback like Allen? Until you can get that talent around him, Dank, I mean, I'm not Nostradamus, man. I can't predict the future, Dank. I think the things that he has to work on are very fixable. I don't like this narrative where people are saying that he can't get, substantially better. I disagree. I mean, just him playing in rhythm, like not waiting for receivers to break open and throw him the ball, even if you can't fix that base yet, if it takes longer to fix the base, his throwing base on passes over 25 yards, it would raise his game to a ridiculous level. It really would, because then you'd be able to throw a lot more of the in-break and route stuff. So I definitely disagree with that perspective, but now trying to predict it, I don't know, Dank. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's really difficult to say. Vincent is not like I'm trying to get him in the late fourth. Second is very possible. Dank, Jermaine Johnson would be nice. He can go all over the – yeah, I was pretty high on Jermaine Johnson when I did the film there. Is Devin Lloyd, Darius Leonard a good comp? I don't know, Takeem. I never thought of Devin Lloyd having that type of speed that Darius Leonard has, but maybe the instincts. I always thought of Darius Leonard more as a weak side, a will linebacker, and I always thought more of Devin Lloyd as being a Sam, the strong side. But I don't know. I'd want to check, man. I need to check alignments. I need to check the way they're playing before I say something definitive. Drew said, thanks, Coach. We'll rewatch to catch what I missed. Yeah, we went over a lot of guys, and we're still going to go over a few more, things on here before I jump off. Matt Hatter said Trey Lance, Fields, and Jones were all quarterbacks we could have got last year. How would you comp them to this year's draft? Boy, Kenny Pickett is the wild card to me, guys. Kenny Pickett and Matt Corral are the wild cards. Here's the thing about Matt Corral. He does have a good arm. I know I got into an argument with them because they were like, oh, he broke Brett Favre's record at the Nike camp. And I'm like, dude, I haven't worked that particular camp, but I've worked the Nike camps before. Like, that stuff's not an official thing. It's got a good arm, but I don't know. I mean, is that the second iteration of Patrick Mahomes? I don't know. People didn't think Patrick Mahomes was any good. You know what I mean? Like, there was definitely debates among front offices of whether or not Patrick Mahomes could play in the NFL. It's really going to hinge on those two guys, Kenny Pickett. Is Kenny Pickett anything even remotely close to Joe Burrow? I don't, it's so hard to say, guys, Kenny Pickett, or say a guy is, Joe Burrow, or a guy is going to be Patrick Mahomes. But if you believe those guys can be anywhere in the realm of those two guys, there you go. The other thing is like the comp I heard for Carson Strong, and I didn't like the comp, was Justin Herbert. I get what they're saying because Justin Herbert had a really good arm, and I get the frame, the size. But Justin Herbert is a way better athlete than Carson Strong is. Carson Strong's not that type of athlete. Now, am I trying to say that he's Kyle Trask from Florida when the pocket breaks down, he's going to get eaten up? No. I think he's better than that. Kyle Trask, I thought, learned to play on time with the offense and was a big guy that didn't have the strongest arm. But I don't see him being Kyle Trask in terms of like just a dud when the pocket breaks down. And I don't see him being as good as Justin Herbert when the pocket breaks down. So, I mean, it's hard to say, man. But I do like Carson Strong a lot. Marky Mack said Carson Strong reminded me of Byron Leftwich this year, both on bad teams, willing their teams to win. Double R said, I will say I've heard people compare Hurts' ceiling to McNabb, Dak, and Russell Wilson. If he reaches that level, then he's a top 10 quarterback. Hurts has an extreme work ethic, so we'll see. Yeah, it's hard to project it, man. Like, I don't want to get into trying to like play Nostradamus, but I do think the Steve McNair and the Donovan McNabb, and I do think those comps make sense to me a little bit more, because those are guys that always had the athletic ability to break you down, playing off schedule, but they always really worked their career to get back on schedule. So it's hard to say, play in rhythm and on schedule with offenses. Yeah, that's what people say it will be, and what it actually is, with that fifth-year option, that decision is hurried by that. Yeah, but I will say the fifth-year option to an extent doesn't hurry you, Dank, because would you rather pay a fifth-year option, or would you rather have to be forced into a situation where you got a franchise tag a guy? To me, I'd much rather pay the fifth-year option than franchise tag. Hurts could well come out in a year and not improve like Ben Simmons, but I'm willing to see how he improves over. Yeah, exactly. I mean, nobody knows. After seeing measurements, I really want a Becty from Penn State and Perion Winfrey from Oklahoma. NFL kills me. Jimmy G isn't great, but if that dude makes that easy INT in the fourth, 49ers are in the Super Bowl, then you just get rid of him. Shaking my head. So I agree. They scapegoated Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G's okay, but I also think he's a bit of fool's gold, guys. I don't think he's nearly as good as that record indicates. Oh, like he's winning competitions. Like, it's kind of a team stat, though, guys. I would much rather see the way Jimmy G plays against top 10 DVOA defenses. I think that gives you a better indication of his actual play, not a generic win or loss stat, you know what I mean, versus winning competition. But I pointed that out to you guys, that if you looked at the top 5 quarterbacks and you base that solely based upon wins, beating teams with a winning record, Jimmy G ranks in the top 5. All right, guys, let's get into a couple more of these. So let's talk a little bit about things such as average depth of target and where these pass catchers ranked on the depth of target, guys. So number 1, Alec Pierce, Cincinnati, 17.1 yards. Holy crap, dude. 17.1 yards is ridiculous. That's such a high number, man. And I will say that makes me concerned, because when they're rating him for his route running, he ranked 13th with a 76.4. Definitely on film, he's a little raw. He's definitely a little raw in the route running. But I would say a guy that has a 17.1 average depth of target. This is not necessarily like your averages. This is where the ball hits your hands. 17.1, guys, is a 7.89 route. A lot. That's a lot of 7.89 route. Number 2 was George Pickens, UGA, 15.5. And then you look at his route running, and he was ranked 15th, 71.1. He was the least ranked guy of the 15 dudes I broke down, guys. I mean, whew. Number 3 was Chris Olave, Ohio State, 14.7. Kind of shocked that Olave was that much of a vertical threat. I feel like I need to do a little bit more film study on him, because I think that's what someone was saying about like how he's a very smooth runner. Number 4, Jameson Williams, Alabama, 14.5 yards. The number one thing that stands out to me is just the amount of dudes that are over 10 yards here. Like, this draft class has a lot of these kind of guys. Number 5, Jalen Tolbert, Southern Alabama, 14.2 yards. At least when you get to Williams and you get to Tolbert, you see some complexity in where they rank. So Tolbert's the number 6 route runner. Williams is the number 7 ranked route runner overall. So, I mean, a little bit better, faring in the route running. Romeo Doubs was number 6 at 13.8 yards in average depth of target. Charleston Rambo was number 7 at 12.7 average depth of target. Garrett Wilson was number 8 at 11.6 average depth of target. Jahan Dotson, number 9 at 11.4. Number 10 is Justin Ross, 10.9. David Bell's number 11 at 10.8. Sky Moore, number 12 at 10.7. Guys, there were 12 receivers over 10 yards, average depth of target, inside this draft class out of the 15 I broke down for this conversation today. Just to let that kind of sink in as the conversation here. 10 out of 15, man. Holy crap. All right, I'm sorry, 12 out of 15. My bad, guys. 12 out of 15 over 10 yards. My bad. Number 13, Treylon Burks, 9.7 yards. Number 14, Drake London, 9.2 yards. Number 15, John Mechie III, 8.8 yards. I will say, if you notice some of the better route runners, you get, especially beating man. If you look at the guys that are beating man, so Drake, let's just look at the man numbers real quick and then make some assumptions. Drake London was number 1. Charleston Rambo was number 2. Garrett Wilson was number 3. Drake London was ranked 14th in terms of the average depth of target. But, I mean, look at Charleston Rambo, ranked number 7. Number 8 for Garrett Wilson. Like, there's some guys here that have some intrigue, guys. I'll be honest with you. If Charleston Rambo is there in the late day 3, I'd probably take a chance. I'd take an opportunity to see if you got something here. Because, yes, I mean, there are some things that we can get into to where he doesn't rank that high on. Yards per route run, I mean, he doesn't rank very high. But there are other places, man, where it makes a ton of sense here. To where I think that maybe he's being a little underrated as a receiver. Let's talk about passes over 20 yards. So who are the guys who caught, passes over 20 yards? So I did this by attempts because I do think there's a story when you look at where are you targeted, right? Because that's what it's a target. So Jalen Tolbert led everybody in this. 37, caught 16 out of 37. Number 2 was Jameson Williams, caught 13 out of 32. Number 3 was Alec Pierce, caught 13 out of 27. Tied at number 3 was Charleston Rambo, Miami. He caught 13 out of 27. Also tied for 3rd was Jahan Dotson, who caught 11 out of 27. Romeo Doubs ranked 6th, 12 out of 25. David Bell ranked 6th as well. Was tied for 6th with Romeo Doubs, 10 out of 25. Chris Olave, number 8, 10 out of 24. Drake London, number 9, 15 out of 23. John Mechie, 7 out of 27, ranked 10th. Sky Moore, ranked 11th, 8 out of 19. Treylon Burks, ranked 12, 12 out of 18. Treylon Burks, like he didn't, he's not necessarily that deep vertical threat that people think. You can see that in his A-dot and catches over, 20 yards. But, dude, 12 out of 18 is like 66%. It's a 66% catch rate over 20 yards. That caught my attention a little bit, guys. And then you look at 13, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State, 9 out of 18, 50% basically. Justin Ross, Clemson, 3 out of 14. And then George Pickens, number 15, 3 out of 11. I will say I'm judging George Pickens by the 2020 numbers because he just didn't get enough snaps in 21. When you look at these, like George Pickens is a little weird just because he didn't play as many snaps as these guys. So it's kind of hard to factor him in to this, but I definitely think that there's some complexity to the story. Taekwon Fortune said, how much you think Hurts surgery will hurt his development? Fair question, Taekwon. I don't know. They say he's going to be good to go by the end of April. Man, he really needs to spend the summer with the quarterback coach working on getting to that rhythm step, getting the football out. He needs time on the field. I'm not saying that film can't help him. My bad, Taekwon, but he needs time on the field, man. I definitely think that's very true, that he's going to need time on the field. Niners been trying to replace Jimmy G since he missed that pass in the Super Bowl. I think Hurts had a scope done. Talk about being a deep wide receiver class. Yeah, I like this wide receiver class a lot. Vincent said Burks, Mechie, and London had a ton of screens called for them, bringing that number down. It's fair. As an OU fan, I'd love Rambo. He was underutilized, but he did well. Anthony said Jameson Williams would be my pick because I think both these receivers are gone by 16 through 19. He was the wily vet who made the most of his opportunities. Fair. What happened with Rambo? He played at OU with CeeDee Lamb, then went to Miami and disappeared. He had a pretty productive year, to be fair, at Miami. I mean, he definitely had a pretty productive year. Just Miami's not that great. If you're a Miami fan, guys, I'm not taking shots at you. I'm just speaking the truth. I mean, NC State was overrated this year. I mean, I thought we had a good season, but, you guys beat us, and we were clearly overrated. On the year, he had 79 catches, 1,165 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4.8% drop rate, dropped 4 passes, right? I mean, that's another discussion we can get into, which is some of these guys, there's some drops that we need to consider, man. I thought Romeo Doubs has pretty good hands. I thought Charleston Rambo exhibited pretty good hands. But then I think there's a lot of dudes that are just average in the hands department. Alec Pierce, a lot of strong, tough catches, right? But 7.1% drop rate. I'd say that's average. David Bell, pretty good, 5.1% drop rate. 5 drops on the season, 5.1% drop rate. 93 catches, 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns. I just wish David Bell got to the end zone more. Good hands, though. George Pickens, very average in the hands department. 3 drops, 7.7% drop rate. John Mechie, 8 drops, 7.7 drop rate, very average. Justin Ross did show good hands, guys. 1 drop, basically a 2% drop rate, guys. I thought he was pretty good. Jalen Tolbert, 7 drops, 7.9% drop rate. It's getting kind of high, to be honest. Sky Moore, really solid hands. 4 drops, 4.1% drop rate. That's good. The 7% range is the average, guys. Jameson Williams, 6 drops, 7.1% drop rate. Chris Olave, 5 drops, 7.1% drop rate. Jahan Dotson, I think this is the guy that 2 drops, 2.2% drop rate. A lot better. He's got better hands than I anticipated, especially for a guy that's not that tall. Garrett Wilson, 6 drops, 7.9% drop rate. Drake London, 8 drops, 8.3% drop rate. That's a criticism of Drake London, to be fair. He separates, he wins. I definitely think he's a good route runner. I think he's got very intriguing frame. I think he's decent in terms of the yak that he gains. He dropped 8 balls, 8.3% drop rate, guys. To be fair, you know what I mean? Like, to be fair, it's kind of high. I still like Drake London as a prospect, but he put the ball in the turf. Treylon Burks, 4 drops, 5.8% drop rate. That's not bad. He's below the average, the mean. So, there's definitely a lot to talk about with these guys. Crap, we're an hour and 42 minutes into this, guys, and we haven't covered everything that I've got ready to queued up to talk about. Let me get into the last topic about these receivers, and I'll do some comments before I jump off, guys. Let's talk about yak per reception. Treylon Burks, number 1, 9.3 yards of yak per reception. Also tied with him, Jameson Williams, Alabama, 9.3 yards. Number 3, Jalen Tolbert, Southern Alabama, 7.1 yards. Number 4, John Mechie, Alabama, 6.7 yards. Number 5, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State, 6 yards of yak per reception. Number 6, David Bell, 5.8 yards. Sky Moore, number 7, 5.7 yards. Jahan Dotson, number 8, 5.3 yards. Drake London, number 9, 5.2 yards. Number 10, Charleston Rambo, Miami, 4.9 yards. Justin Ross, Clemson, number 11, 4.5 yards. Chris Olave, number 12, 4.2 yards. Romeo Doubs, number 13, 4 yards. Alec Pierce, number 14, 3.7 yards. George Pickens, number 15, 3.4 yards. This is where I think it gets kind of complex when you're looking at these guys that had a ton of production, guys. So let's just compare for a minute. Passes over 20 yards, right? So when you look at passes over 20 yards, some of those names that I named you, right? Alec Pierce, number 3. Romeo Doubs, number 6. Chris Olave, number 8. But then you look at these guys in terms of the yak, and they're ranked 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th with George Pickens. Those guys, to be fair, it seems like to me as if they're being targeted downfield on those 7, 8, 9 routes, but you might have some questions about their ability to run timing routes, right? Can you hitch? Can you do a comeback, curl? How about slant routes? How about out routes, dig routes? Can you do those things? Like, that's what I would look for on film personally from those guys, those 4 guys in particular. And I told you I'm very high on Romeo Doubs, but if I went to his film and I wanted the Eagles to draft him, I'm speaking from the Eagles' perspective here. I would want to see Romeo Doubs executing things like slant routes, out routes, dig routes, comeback, curls, hitches, all that kind of stuff. Because if I don't see that on his film, then I'm a little skeptical that he might just be a 7, 8, 9 route guy. Takeem said, how fast is Treylon Burks? Is he the next Julio? Some debatable, Takeem. I'm hearing people say he's going to run a 4.3. I don't know, man. I just think that body size, I'm going to say 4, somewhere in the low 4.4s is what I predict. If he runs a 4.3, he's clearly going to be a top 12 pick. Plus, being Williams' injury drops him and benefits us. Drake London, 15 of 23 in 8 games is wild. Charles Rambo was one of Hurts's favorite weapons, so I would go for him in later rounds. Charleston Rambo, my bad, Red Eagle. Anthony said, I don't trust those West receivers, mentally scared, laugh out loud. I will say, though, Anthony, to be fair, USC has produced receivers, man. Michael Pittman Jr. is a good player, you know what I mean? To be fair, Nelson Aguilar, did it work out in Philly? No, but I don't think any of us question his ability to separate and run routes. He's pretty good at that. The young man, Amon-Ra St. Brown, is playing with Detroit. He's been pretty good. I mean, to be fair, USC has definitely put in some decent receivers. Anthony said, I really love this Jermaine Johnson kid out of FSU, but that's another topic. Yeah, I talked about him on the defensive end video. I was pretty high on him too. I don't think 3 wide receivers are going before 15, so Wilson, Burks, or London should be there. And I've been of the opinion that if one of those 3 are there, they are way too good to pass on Vincent. I think you're right. My guess would be is that Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson might come off the board before pick 15. But I also think it's only possible only one of those guys come off the board. That it might only be Burks or Wilson, but not both. I think both are possibilities. Teams might try to jump us in an attempt to go get one of those guys to get ahead of us. But I do think you're right that one of the 3 should be there. He said David Bell did have 12 quarterbacks throwing to him, laugh out loud. Yeah. He said, laugh out loud over reaction Thursday. Gates said Miami sucks. How do you feel so far in this draft process? This draft sounds pretty deep outside of quarterback. I think it's pretty decent, especially at receiver. I like the talent level at receiver. Now, I will say, Dante, to be fair, I don't think that Miami sucks. I think they suck in terms of the amount of talent that comes into the room, and they don't produce. They just don't produce with the top programs. They should be a lot better than what their record states. Drake dropping the ball like JJ. Do you see Dallas drafting Burks at 24 to replace Michael Gallup? He has the Jerry Jones, Arkansas connection, and Amari Cooper is mediocre at this point. I sure hope not, Takeem. I hope that does not happen. Maybe Dallas trades up for Burks. Takeem, that scares me. I hope not. This year, Smitty 1.6 drop rate. Quez 1.9% drop rate. Rambo didn't just have CD. Theo Wees, Jason Hasselwood, and Marvin Mims, all 5-star recruits. What was Debo's 40 time? That's a great question, Dank. I don't know that off the top of my head. I have no clue. Dank said Amon-Ra St. Brown is a beast. Yeah, he's had a really good year. Debo ran like a 4.52, I believe. Yeah, I honestly think 40 times can be a little overrated just because lateral movement, I think, counts more on a football field. Your ability to start and stop, move laterally, I think has more to do with being explosive. Hurts is the guy. Give him a couple of years to develop. If he ain't the guy by 2024, we move on. I don't know if they're going to wait that long, man. I definitely think it's likely they'll give him this year, but I don't know if they're going to wait until 2024. He said, no, correction, Debo ran a 4.48. Pretty good for his size, man. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. If Treylon Burks puts up, Takeem, if he puts up low 4.4 numbers, I think he's going to skyrocket for people. My main fear when people first started pumping him into my ear, Takeem, is that overrated. This dude's going to be highly overrated. And then I went into and I started watching games, and I said, for a guy that's 6'2", 6'3", 225, the way he sinks his hips at the top of route stems tells me he's got some mobility. This guy can move. I love the A.J. Brown comparisons. I don't know that they're apples for apples per se, but I get the big, strong guy that maybe doesn't put up the crazy 4.3 number on you, but is still fast, still a solid movement guy, a guy that gets in and out of his breaks well and is strong, has the crazy, strong physical body and the strong hands. I certainly see that. I can see that. Just like I see the frame questions. People say, Drake London at the NFL level, if he can develop those 7, 8, 9 routes and, not be a product of USC system, which is a little bit more spread mixed in with some West Coast ideas. So he doesn't always get the opportunity to go for those 7, 8, 9 routes. I can see that. I understand where people are going with it. But we'll see, guys. I mean, it's going to be interesting, guys. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how they use him in the NFL. I personally like Drake London, man. I think he's a good balance of a decent route runner. I think he's very good versus man coverage in terms of his route running ability. I mean, he can catch a ball over 20 yards. We see that. I mean, he ranked 9th with 15 catches on 23 attempts, and he didn't play a 12-game schedule. And then, we do see that he can get you some yak. I mean, if we look at averages, he ranks 9th, 5.2 yards. I mean, is he the best yak guy in his class? Certainly not. He's not. But the ability is there to be a yak guy. I mean, I like him. But I'll close out here, guys. I'm going to close it out here in a few minutes because we've been going on almost 2 hours at this point. Hour and 50 minutes, guys. Give me your feedback. Who is the receiver you want? Give me, not necessarily the Eagles. Who do you think is the #1 wide receiver in this draft class? Who's that guy? Who's that guy to you? Who's the #1 wide receiver from a talent perspective in this draft class, in your opinion? Is Drake London's injury history anything to be worried about? Sure, Tikim. Sure. Yeah, I mean, you always, you can't say it's not. I mean, he dealt with lower leg issue. Was it a knee? I know he did have an injury because it's one of the first pictures that pops up of him. Sure. I mean, absolutely. Dante said Burks. Mad Hatter said Rager is the next Debo in the USFL. Anthony said Jameson Williams. So we got Burks and Jameson Williams so far. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to chime in to who you think. Who is the best wide receiver in the 2022 NFL? I almost said 21, guys. NFL draft class. Just overall talent, not necessarily who you think the Eagles should target. Who's the best talent in your opinion? Mad Hatter said Burks. Gabagoo, what's good, buddy? You think because of the upcoming free agents on our squad, the Eagles are forced to get a wide receiver? Kind of. I think just given the lack of production, whether it's through a free agency or in the draft, I think both are definitely, in the consideration. But yeah, definitely. Antonio said he thinks it's Williams. Waylon Sembley coming with the hot take saying it's Mechie. I think it's going to be Mechie. Vincent said Garrett Wilson. Big Birds came in with David Bell. Slice on said, I don't care, man. Just give me one of those Bama boys. I'm just going to – he said, if there's a choice of Alabama receiver, I'll take Alabama receiver. It's funny. Anybody else, guys? Anybody else got a prediction of who you think is going to be the best receiver from this draft class? I'm torn, man. I'm really torn because, man, I'm torn. I definitely am concerned that Drake London can still be the best receiver but never produce because of injury. But at the same time, I think Treylon Burks might have a special ability. He might be unique and he may never be viewed. He might be viewed more like a Deebo Samuel type, right? Where he's never viewed as a pure wide receiver. But I think the talent's there. And then I'm sorry, but, man, everything I saw of Garrett Wilson's film was just positive. The dude was just good at everything. Takeem said it's between Burks and Williams for him. But if I had to choose, I would say Burks because of his size. Dante came in with Mechie. We got a second on Mechie. Turok the Dinosaur said Burks. Bobby said Wilson. But for us, Burks or Drake London. Reva said, I think it's Jameson Williams by a lot, actually. Dank said, Bell is my guy, but it's hard. Yeah, Bell's like trying to project his production. You're right. I mean, he did play with a ton of quarterbacks. That's very true. Red Eagle said Burks hands down. Garrett Wilson second. Bob Cliff said Burks, size, speed, and the yak ability. Kurt Monroe said, I want an absolute greedy wide receiver, whoever it is. Kobe K said Burks hands down. I like Burks a lot too, guys. I think he's got to be in the right system. But the fact that he can be a boundary side receiver for you, he can be a tall slot. He's probably going to be athletically gifted enough to be a flanker if you really wanted him to. I just think he's one of those guys that has that versatility. But there are a few of you guys that are mentioning Williams, and because of his injury, it might be clouding our perception of him. But, man, he was an impressive yak guy as well, Williams was. Taekwon said Williams, but who can block, laugh out loud. Yeah, if you got that lineup out there, Quez, Williams, Smitty, not a lot of wide receiver screens are going to happen. I can tell you that. Well, I shouldn't say that, guys. I shouldn't say that, Shining Star. Burks, Shining Star said Burks is his choice. But wide receiver screens shouldn't occur if that's our lineup. Whether they would occur, who knows, man. The whole Burks dealing with many quarterbacks in college reminds me of Rager at TCU. Yeah, but I will say, though, at least he didn't have the tail off in production. You know what I mean? Like, Rager was incredibly talented. I'm not going to sit here and say that I wasn't high on Rager. I was a Rager guy. Now, I did say infamously in my mock draft, I passed on Rager. And I did say that Justin Jefferson was better. But, yeah, what happened to Rager, I didn't see coming, man. He was so much worse than what I thought he would be in the pros. If you're looking at the hybrid running back wide receiver versatility, makes Burks the best. Matt Hatter said, let's tell Howie we don't want Burks, and he will go out of his way to get him. Williams is better than Burks. What's up, Rico Sosa? How you doing, man? Vincent said Chris Olave is the next Torrey Holt. Vincent, I love the way you tried to tie an NC State guy in there to get me to agree with you. I see what you did there, man. One above all said Burks, but the sleeper pick is Pierce once he develops. Sleeper is Drummond. What's up, Waylon? Yeah, I had a few guys in terms of I didn't get around to them, but I want to mention a couple of guys that I think one guy in particular should be mentioned as a really good wide receiver. But I didn't break them down because I didn't know how – I'm going to do a player profile on him, but I didn't know how much you guys would know about him. So you might have been like, Gate, who is this dude? What are you talking about? Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky. Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, guys, he's someone that I think as a gadget player, and I know the Eagles don't need a gadget player. I'm just talking about overall talent in the draft. As a gadget player that might have some upside to become way better than just a gadget player, I like Wan'Dale Robinson a lot from Kentucky. I didn't mention Khalil Shakir just because he plays at Boise State and the body control. You guys remember all the things we said about body control with John Hightower coming out of the draft? This guy is said to be one of these dudes that just has really good body control. He's a nuanced route runner at Boise State. He's a projected late second, early third round pick. I didn't mention him because I didn't want to get into it, but the other one is Javon Hiley, the young man from Coastal Carolina. He's another guy that I like a lot. I definitely like a lot, but I think I need to do more film study because of level of competition, guys. I didn't want to come out here and give you a sales pitch on a guy when I didn't fully account for his level of competition first. Michael said it's funny people give Rager the benefit of the doubt for bad quarterback play, but not Ross this year, shaking my head. Yeah, I mean, I really like Justin Ross a lot coming into it, but I was concerned, man. Like, I need to go further into detail, Michael, about what happened with Ross. That production drop scares me. But you're right. I mean, in 2019, I believe it was the 19 season, the stars looked bright for him. Gabagoo said, we need a big guy. Tarak said, Burks is great. Dante said, Ross is my sleeper. The injuries messed him up. Anthony said, Gates, have you done linebackers yet? I did, guys. I did linebackers last week. So last week we did defense. This week we did offense. And then starting next week, I'm going to do free agent player profiles and then draft profiles. Ross is very good. Takeem said, John Hightower shaking my head. He said, hey, Anthony, yes. Yes, he did. Vincent said, Wan'Dale Robinson has the most shake in the draft. That guy is a weapon. Reminds me of Romeo Moore. Oh, Romeo. Yeah. The kid from, what was his name? I know exactly who you're talking about, from Purdue. But he didn't play. Like, he was a guy I don't think played that much last year. So you had to go back to his, 2019 film to really see him. But I remember Rondell Moore. Rondell Moore was his name. Yeah. Yeah, he was ridiculously good, man. Rico Sosa said, I like Calvin Austin III in the slot. I think he's a sleeper. JJ said, what would you do with the Jets' 2 top 10 picks? You guys are kind of really faced with something here, man. I think your secondary needs to improve, but I also think your offensive line has to improve. I mean, What are your thoughts about Mekhi Becton? I think he's a big space eater and a dancing teddy bear. The athletic, profiles there. I mean, I think he could be that guy, but the injuries and the weight concern and all that stuff, JJ, to be honest, I'm not too sure you guys shouldn't be in the offensive line and secondary market in the top 10. But at the same time, I think that if you're a team that has many needs, maybe the best way of approaching the draft is just to take two guys that you feel will be impact players in the NFL, no matter what their position is. You need to be better wherever you are. So if that's a safety, go get your safety, right? If that's a defensive end and you got an opportunity to steal a true pass rusher that's going to fit your system, I think you go for that. Although I thought your defensive line was better than what most people probably realize. But, different ways of approaching it, man. Vincent said, I get that guy's name. You get empathy from me, man. Don't worry about it. I mispronounce people's names and stuff all the time. Let's hope the Jets and Giants take everything but cornerback, linebacker, and Hutchinson. The Boise State wide receiver, Shakir, I think is extra electric too. Yeah. I get that people probably won't be overly hyped about going back into Boise State with the way that the Hightower thing worked out, but he's good, man. Calvin Austin at 5'7", 172 pounds. Becton is a concern with injury and weight. No doubt. Can't count on him. I think O-line and wide receiver are where they should go in the first round. So you're basically trying to build around Zach Wilson. Gabagoo said one mock has the Giants taking tackle and center. Hey. Red Eagle said people don't talk about the Vikings had Rager graded higher than Justin Jefferson because of his return ability. Yeah, draft grades are a funny thing, guys. They really are. And I didn't even get into returners on this one. I'll talk about it when I do player profiles, guys. I'll tell you if they got some return possibilities. What's up, Nimi? He said George Pickens. George Pickens. So we got a vote in here for George Pickens. All right, guys, we are going on 2 hours and 2 minutes. I'm going to sign out. Thank you guys so much. I'll try to go back through the video, guys, and I'll try to record some of the predictions for kind of the sleeper picks and the best player in the draft picks. And, we can talk about it during the course of the season to see who nailed it. You know what I mean? Who was on it. But, all right, guys, I appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow. We're doing quarterbacks, guys. Tomorrow is the quarterback conversation. Let me get Shownuff's comment before I leave real quick, guys. Don't be fooled by the Giants. They're taking Pickett and a one of those top edge rushers. Possibly, man. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Talking quarterbacks, guys. No problem, Anthony. Thank you, guys.